That's lovely, isn't it? Good morning. And welcome to the home of Unitarian Universalism in Central Washington. My name is Lynn Madsen, and our guest speaker today is Rick Proctor, who is the president of Stone Blossom Sangha. And he will be talking to us today and leading us in some Zen Buddhist practices. If you are a visitor this morning, we are so glad you're here. We welcome every person of goodwill. Everybody, no matter who you are, no matter who you love, no matter what you look like, what kind of a body you inhabit, what your ethnicity or religious preferences are, you are welcome here. We invite everybody to continue our communion after the service with conversation and coffee. And then immediately following that, after about 15 minutes, there will be a discussion group Rick will lead if you have further questions or want to talk more about Zen Buddhist practices. And now, if you would all turn around and wave to the people on Zoom and let them know we appreciate their participation too. And greet some folks around you. Say hi, especially to people that you may not know. We're going to open this morning with a short song. You can sing this from your seats. Please join us in singing Finding My Way Back to Now. Some words for us from the board.
Good morning. So a quick report on what came out of the last board meeting. At the risk of stating the obvious, the approaching demise of our sanctuary at the hands of the Washington State Department of Transportation is still proceeding. And unsurprisingly, finding us a new home remains job number one for the board. In fact, I'm told there's some red stakes out there that have been driven, where you can look and see what's going to go on out there. So to that end, we've detected some indications that some in the fellowship think the board is really focused on building a new sanctuary on the north lot. And the answer is no, that's not the focus of the board. Focus of the board is to make sure the fellowship makes a well-informed decision whether we should build, buy, or rent. So nothing's been decided in that at all. Also to this end, we hear this repeated a lot. There's a very strong request that nobody in CUUF speak to the WSDOT, Department of Transportation, about what we may or may not do except our authorized individuals. There's a lot of money at stake here, including potentially tens of thousands of dollars of relocation expense. So if we have a member of the fellowship telling a member of the WSDOT that we're going to build on the north lot, well, there might be a lot of money left on the table. So let's let the authorized representative speak for us. But anyways, as we go forward, look for a lot of fellowship-wide communications, discussion, debate, as we come up with a good agreement as to what we're going to do. Switching subjects, we also approved a procedure regarding Larry's tenure as our treasurer. You might remember that Larry stepped in midterm to fill the gap created by the resignation of our previous treasurer. So normally a treasurer serves for 3 years. So we have Larry's not here, is he? Okay, Larry has a non-standard term, which we can always say, well, Larry's interested in that regard. But we needed to create a process by which we could bring Larry's term as our treasurer to have a nice, smooth transition to the next treasurer. So what we've done is approved a resolution where he will remain treasurer and board member until July 1st, 2026, or until his replacement achieves journeyman status as our new treasurer, whichever event occurs first, which leads to the next statement. Please volunteer to be our next treasurer. Larry would like to retire at some point. Also, a number of you might recall the recent Spencer LaJoy concert, which was really well received. but very unsurprisingly illustrated some opportunities for improvement of our management of these events. So while we're quite convinced these type of events can be a very positive aspect of the CUUF life, we're developing a written procedure and policy to help guide us to go forward. So expect more on this as we go forward. The board also approved a proposal made by Reverend Thomas to establish a committee on ministry at CUUF. The objective of this committee is very simple. It's to ongoing evaluation of the effectiveness of all of the CUUF's ministries. The nominating committee will also be looking for members to join this group. So please, when they come, be receptive to that request. So anyways, that's the news from the board for the month. Thank you.
Our fellowship is located on the ancestral homeland of the Piscosa. For thousands of years, the Piscosa have lived here, making a vibrant way of life and building a rich culture from the land, the beings and human neighbors with whom they shared it. Hear now the words of Oyehesa of the Santee Sioux. The first American mingled with his pride a singular humility. Spiritual arrogance was foreign to his nature and teaching. He believes profoundly in silence, the sign of perfect equilibrium. Silence is the absolute poise or balance of body, mind, and spirit. The man who preserves his selfhood ever calm, unshaken by the storms of existence, not a leaf, as it were, astir on the tree, not a ripple upon the surface of the shining pool. His, in the mind of this unlettered sage, is the ideal attitude and conduct of life. Silence is the cornerstone of character. The Piscosa still live here, still practice their cultural traditions, are still trying to form healthy, respectful relationships with the dominant culture, and still working to have their rights restored and treaty obligations fulfilled. We have said we are going to do our part to support them. For more on this subject, please visit our website, cascadeuu.org, under Welcome. And now, please rise in body and spirit and sing our opening song, Let It Be. Opening words today, our call to worship, are Tori Zenji's Bodhisattva's Vow. When I, a student of Dharma, truth, look at the real form of the universe, all is the never-failing manifestation of the mysterious truth of Tathagata. In any event, in any moment, in any place, none can be other than the marvelous revelation of its glorious light. With this realization, our virtuous Zen ancestors extended tender care with a compassionate heart, even to such beings as beasts and birds. Among us, in our own daily lives, who is not reverently grateful for the protections of life, food, drink, and clothing? It is clear that these protections are nothing less than the warm flesh and blood, the merciful incarnation of Buddha. Realizing this, who cannot be respectful of all senseless things, not to speak of human being. Therefore, even if someone names us as a sworn enemy and persecutes us, we should be warm and compassionate toward them. Their very abuse conveys the Buddha's boundless loving kindness for us. It must be seen as a compassionate device to liberate us entirely from our own egoistic delusions and the attachments we have built up from the beginningless past. With an open-hearted response to even the most cruel and foolish people, a most profound and pure faith arises. Then, in each moment's flash of our thought, there will grow a lotus flower, and on each flower, a Buddha will be revealed. Everywhere is the glory of the Pure Land. In every moment, may we extend this mind over the whole universe, so that we and all beings together may attain maturity in Buddha's wisdom. The chalice and flame symbolize our congregation gathered in principles and faith. If you at home have your chalice with you, please join me now in lighting it. Here in the sanctuary, we will speak these lighting words called the purification, which you can find on the screen or in your order of service. In the past, I have caused much harm. My greed, anger, and folly arise from the beginningless past, yet they spring from this body, this mouth, and this mind. I alone am responsible for the suffering they have brought, and I hereby renounce and relinquish them all. We have a story today, and if the children would like to come up and sit by me, you can see the pictures much better. Okay. We'll make room. Can you see the pictures? All right. So this is
Now go with each other to find meaning.
That was a great story. That's based on a famous Zen story, actually, of a monk that did that, a great bodhisattva. And you've already heard the word bodhisattva today. And that's what we're going to recite now, the bodhisattva vows, one that benefits others. However innumerable all beings are together, we vow to care for them all. However inexhaustible delusions are, we vow to relinquish them all. However immeasurable gates of truth are, we vow to enter them all. However endless the Buddha's way is, we vow to follow it.
We are all responsible for the caring ministry of our fellowship. Throughout the month, our congregational care team works to encourage and coordinate the work of that ministry. The care team representative today is Mary Madsen. She's all the way in the back. You can tell her of any needs you have or are aware of. You can also fill out one of the contact cards that are in the back of the pouch and the seat back in front of you. As part of our communal ministry, we take time every week to give folks an opportunity to share events or experiences that have moved them in a deeply personal way. This is a time of reverence and an opportunity to open the door to a deeper connection, for the fellowship to create and hold space for those of us who choose to share. If there's something in your heart you wish to share, please come forward, tell us your name, and light a candle and place it in the sand. As part of the practice for today's service, we invite you not to label these things as good or bad, simply to describe it and tell us what emotions it brings you.
So what I'm going to show you is a hand posture, right? Because when I sit down, you won't be able to see how my hands are. In Zen meditation, there's two basic hand postures that we use. One, and you all are going to do this, so take the stuff out of your laps, set your water bottles down. Everybody get ready. We're going to do the meditation here, okay? All right, so the hand posture, one posture is called cosmic mudra. And you take your strong hand, which in my case is my right hand, and you lay your left hand on top of it, and you take your thumbs and put them together like this, gently. And when you're meditating, if your thumb starts collapsing, or if you start going like this, you've lost mindfulness. You've lost control of your body. Most of the time, we've lost control of our body, as well as our mind. That's what meditation's about, one thing. This is one posture, and you hold it about 1.5 inches below your navel. It's called the hara. It's the center of energy, center in martial arts. That's one posture. The other one is called Rinzai determination. And this one, you make a little circle like this, like a little donut, and you take your thumb and put it in there, not squeeze it. You take these 3 fingers, you wrap them around the back of your palm, and this little finger hooks underneath, like this. And the reason that is because if you don't do that, your hands will sag. But if you put your little finger under there, your hands won't sag. Right? So whole thumb, 3 fingers around, little finger underneath. Just looks like that. No, you're interlacing them there. Not interlaced. See, these 3 there's not an interlacing, right? Just goes on the top. Okay, so those are the 2 hand postures. You can sit with your hands on your lap, anything you want, but I just wanted to show you that. Four bells. I'm sorry, Jeff. Big bells. We're a little out of sync here. I'm going to do a chant. Sorry, Jeff, I think we got our bells wrong. So let's just, do you mind if we just start with 4 bells and then we'll do the chant? Yep, and then the set. Sorry, love. This is in your service. Opening this Dharma, incomparably profound and minutely subtle, is hardly met with, even hundreds of thousands of millions of eons. We now can see this, listen to this, accept and hold this. May we completely understand and actualize this Tathagata's true meaning. So now we're going to do a little guided meditation. This whole thing is going to last about, I'm not going to tell you how long. All right, so get your hand posture. Jeff's going to start ringing some bells. During these 4 bells, roll your shoulders, relax your shoulders. Put your ankles directly under your knees so that there's no weight. Don't slump in your chair, try to sit upright. Imagine that there's a little string tied to the crown of your head, a string of pearls coming out of the crown of your head by way. And just let that tug on your spine and align your spine. Your ears in line with your shoulders. Chin down slightly, but not a lot. Feel your feet on the floor. Feel the bottom of your chair. I start with my eyes closed. With all your physical posture, feel your whole body, let it relax. This time's yours. Place your tongue against the soft palate at the roof of your mouth, the back of your teeth. Start watching your breath. You don't have to control it, just notice it. You might try to exhale a little longer than you inhale. Now open your eyes slightly, so kind of like alligator eyes. That brings you to the present, this place. Just notice what your mind is doing. You can hear the cars. Now, if you want to practice concentration, exhale. 1. Silently. 2. 3. Count to 10. Start over again. If you lose your place, start over again. There's no right way to be at peace with yourself. Who's glad that was over? Oh, I have to remember that. Okay. You guys are probably wondering why I'm wearing a bib. Religion's messy. It's really, this is called a roxu, and it's got a little inscription, what have you, on the back of it. It says MuKen, which is my Dharma name. So I've accepted the Buddhist precepts. To do that, you have to attend a few week-long retreats, set 10 hours a day like that. You know, for a lot of us, boredom is the gateway to insight. We're always so busy doing that we never be. And, oh, that reminds me, I want to thank the musicians. That was wonderful. Let It Be. Every song was well chosen. I thought they were really fit with all the weirdness that's going on here today. Because I'm guessing that there's some words and ideas that you've probably never heard before. We talk about Buddha. Buddha, you know, it means awakened one. It wasn't Shakyamuni's name. Gautama Shakyamuni wasn't his name. That was a title that he acquired because he woke up. That's what it means. I think about the Buddha as a discoverer, as an inventor. He, for me, ranks with Einstein and Newton, and of course my personal favorite, Nikola Tesla. Being an electrical engineer, you can imagine. Is this off? Okay. You can imagine. So he discovered the Four Noble Truths in the Eightfold Path. I don't know, does anybody know the story? You guys know the story of the Buddha, basically? I'll tell you like a 1-minute story of the Buddha, which isn't going to do it justice. So he was this, just a dude, a prince, sheltered prince, pampered prince. And he went out on some chariot rides with his charioteer, and he saw a sick person, and he saw an old person, and he saw a dead person, and he saw a sadhu, a monk, a seeker of truth. And this was in India. And he talked to his charioteer. He says, what is that? Well, that's what suffering looks like. And of course, he lived this pampered life of pleasure, and he'd never really seen it. His father had sheltered him from that. And so he ran away from home at 29, left a wife and a kid. Spent 6 years trying to figure out the cause and cure for suffering. And that was his sole function, really. That's what that was his main job. So he practiced asceticism, starved himself almost to death, was on the verge of death, and this farmer's wife came by and gave him some rice milk, which is kind of a thick porridge pudding made of rice. And he got restored to health and sat down. This is all a mythical classical story, right? Sat down underneath the Bodhi tree and said, I'm going to stay here until I got it. Well, he'd done a lot of work already, 6 years of work going up to this. That's the same amount of time it took Tesla to figure out the three-phase AC system, and then it came like this, right? I mean, he knelt down and drew it in the dirt, and this was kind of the same thing. He knew he was close, right? So he sat down, I'm going to work on this now until I've got it. So he came up with the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. And so what's the problem? Suffering. What's the cause of suffering? That was tricky. That took a while to figure out. But it's attachment, craving, thirst. Thirst is a word that this Sanskrit word is often translated as is thirst. And our thirst, we can temporarily quench it, but it always comes back. You can't get away from thirst. You can't get away from craving and attachment. It's very, very, very difficult. He says, so, well, is it possible to solve the problem? Like any good inventor, it's like, can I come up with a solution to this problem? I know what it is now. And so finally he got it, and it's the Eightfold Path. A couple prerequisites to kind of understanding this is the law of karma. So karma isn't like this magical thing. Whenever you say something bad, somebody else, whacks you with a pool cue. That can happen. But it's the law of cause and effect. I mean, it's just the laws of reality, honestly. And that's when we talk about dharma, that's what that means, reality, truth. Right? Not a delusion, not an illusion. Right? It's what actually is. Which is the thing I like about Buddhism, because you don't have to believe anything. It's a practice that if you try it, you can see if it works. It's a simple thing. And it can go with any other practice. In fact, that's why Zen is so, there's the Zen in the art of everything. Because the skills and the ways that you look at things in Zen translate directly into everyday life, constantly. And unfortunately, I can't talk about Zen today, because to understand Zen at all, really in any depth, you have to understand these basic Buddhist ideas of the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. This paper that I'm working off of, there's a link on your sheet or in the website that will take you to this. This way it's secret, you don't know what's on it, but this is the paper I'm working off of today. Okay, so this Eightfold Path, it's not so much as a linear path from here to there. In fact, sometimes you'll see it drawn up as 8 circles all connected together with a line every way it can go. And so you kind of need to think about it like that. But underlying it are two things, the law of karma and impermanence. Right? This idea of impermanence. Nothing is permanent. Your suffering isn't permanent. Your joy isn't permanent. Your hair is not permanent. My hair isn't permanent, that's for sure. My height isn't permanent. I used to be like 6 feet 1 inches tall. I wear size 12 shoes. Now I wear size 13. I've been shrinking into my shoes. It's just like, you'd think your shoe size would stay fixed. But it's just not true. And so once you realize that this thing of cause and effect and impermanence, then you can say, okay, so suffering does exist. In Sanskrit, it's called dukkha. And it comes from attachment. It can be solved. The Eightfold Path is it. First on the Eightfold Path, right view. Right? Obviously, if you've got a distorted view of reality, you're kind of screwed from the start. You've got a bad start on the whole problem. So this idea of what reality is requires us to be incredibly honest with ourselves, which is difficult because we're conditioned through our culture and from our parenting, from everybody we meet, from advertising. Constantly we're conditioned into certain ways and certain thought and view, right? And so the right view from the Eightfold Path's perspective is the Four Noble Truths. Suffering exists, caused by attachment. You can't get rid of it. Follow the Eightfold Path. So that's number 1 in the Eightfold Path. So once you lose sight of, that it can be solved, you've lost, you're off of the Eightfold Path, if you will. And this Eightfold Path is called the Noble Eightfold Path. And it doesn't mean that it's noble, it means that noble people walk it, right? Or discover it. It's a discovery process. Buddha was kind of like a guide on a mountain trail, that put out some signposts along the way, but we have to walk the trail. We discover it. I mean, every one of us that walk a trail in the mountains out here, our experience is unique to ourselves. Nobody else has had that. And it's the same in our spiritual quest. One other thought here, two other things that need to be brought up is mindfulness. Okay, so if you're not mindful of your view, If you're just caught in your conditioning, you don't have a chance. So this mindfulness, and we sang a song this morning, right, about mindfulness. And so it's everything is rooted in mindfulness. And Buddha says that after he leaves the Bodhi tree, after he has his insight, he actually takes 7 weeks, which is the same amount of time that I had to prepare for this. He's a lot more concise. Yeah. I hope you guys brought your lunch. Actually, I ordered pizza, so we're covered. That was the one prepared joke. Beyond that, I don't have the slightest idea what I'm going to say. I have an outline. But his buddies, he was practicing with 5 monks, other monks, and his buddies said, "Hey, Buddha fell off the path. He's not an ascetic anymore. He's going to come and see us. Just don't even invite him into the campfire, right?" So they're sitting around this place called Deer Park, and they see the Buddha come walking down the trail, and they go, "Oh, he looks different. He's like glowing, like a little kid glows, whenever they get it." And it comes in, they go, "Well, maybe we'll let him sit down." And so he sat down and he gave this teaching on the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. And I'm going to read this because no matter what I do today, this is what the Buddha said. "Disciples, why do I call this the right path? I call it the right path because it does not avoid or deny suffering. It allows for the direct confrontation of suffering as the means to transform it. By practicing, the Noble Eightfold Path is the path of living awareness. Mindfulness is the foundation. By practicing mindfulness, you can develop skills of contemplation, which enable you to attain understanding. Thanks to right contemplation, you realize right awareness, thoughts, speech, action, livelihood, and effort. The understanding which develops through the direct experience of Dharma, the dynamic truth, can liberate you from every shackle of suffering and give birth to peace and joy. I will guide you along this path of realization." I mean, that's 8 sentences. And the whole Eightfold Path is embodied in those 8 sentences. I'm going to go through them here one at a time. We've done first one, right view. The second one is a right intention. And that's a thought. And when I should say this word right, this is a very classical translation that I'm working off of here. Right is appropriate. Right is in conjunction with reality. Right is beneficial to others. That's why these bodhisattva vows are so important. That's the being of benefit to other people and the planet, not just ourselves. It's not right or wrong. It's not judgmental. It's just seeing, not discerning. It's discerning, not discriminating, right? So you see, but you don't choose. Because as soon as you choose, you're attached. So this is not fair. And so then you're going to suffer. I'm attached and I'm still suffering. You can see how it works, right? There's a real life demonstration. And it goes out everywhere. You are getting it too. So it's important that as I go through this and I use this word right, that you understand that a lot of these words that we have to use, they're very, English tends to be very narrow, and some of Sanskrit specifically tends to be very broad, like dukkha, suffering. It's dis-ease. It could be translated as dis-ease, right? So we're never quite okay, right? There's always a dis-ease to us, right? And why? Because we're attached to something, right? So I'm going to go on here with right intention. So right intention speaks of renunciation, letting go. We actually chanted a little chant there. This, I hereby renounce and relinquish them all, right? And that was acknowledging our karma that was built up from the beginningless past. We have no choice. You got inherited. You know, it's who you are. But we are responsible for the intention of our actions after that, right? So if we have ill intention, then it's actually called wholesome. So if we have wholesome intention, then wholesome outcomes occur. If we have unwholesome intention, then there's unwholesome outcomes occur. You intend to rob a bank, you rob a bank. You intend to benefit to charity, you give it to charity. I mean, it's a clear thing. So renunciation is giving up of your karmic past, not being attached to it. You can't escape it, but you don't have to be hooked to it. So all of those doubts and fears and worries and things you think you might have done different, you know, you don't have to hold on to any of that. Or somebody else might have done something different to you or for you. You know, you can let all of that go. And that's what that vow is. That's why that vow for me is so important. I love it every time I chant that. When I first started setting, I would sit down and I would dedicate my set I'd ask for forgiveness from all the people that I thought I had harmed. And then I would offer forgiveness to all the people that harmed me. I just spent 30 seconds at the front of every set for about a year and did that. And I don't know, I don't do it anymore. But that's part of what letting go is. Recognizing it, seeing it, mindfulness, and then not grabbing onto it. Non-cruelty is another intention, right? A right thought or right intention. So you have an actual intention not to be cruel, right? The next one is right speech. Wow, now this one we could talk about for a long time, right? My dad was a mechanic, and he used to say, be sure your brain is in gear before you put your mouth in motion. And it's just so, I read a little thing out of a book we're studying recently, the other day, and it said that we speak without knowing what we're going to say. It just comes out. And I mean, I assume that happens to everybody. It's not just me, right? It's hard to be thoughtful in your speech. It's hard to have right intention in your speech. And this goes to self-speech. This isn't just about speech out to others. The way we talk to ourselves causes us a lot of suffering. You know, we could be a lot kinder to ourselves in general, I think. Classically, you're supposed to refrain from false speech. Don't lie, that's obvious. Slanderous speech, don't be malicious, obvious. Harsh speech, don't try to hurt other people. And this is the one that none of us can do. Idle chatter. Well, in your service, the Native American talked about silence as the core, right, the foundation. And a lot of times, people talk just to fill space. I mean, some of us were probably uncomfortable being quiet for 7 minutes. You know, it's like, okay, we need to say something, we need to do something. You know, but that's not really true. A lot of the times, the best speech that we can have is no speech at all. You know, we butt into somebody else's affairs or say something that we wish we would have regretted. Clearly our brain wasn't in gear. Honesty, honest speech. That's difficult. I mean, how many times have you wanted to be honest with somebody but you couldn't because they were too sensitive or you were too angry? You couldn't be honest in your anger either. Anger is one of the 3 poisons that Buddhism talks about. Greed, anger, and delusion. You know, the wanting more, angry, not happy when we don't get our way, we don't get what we're greedy for, and we're deluded because we think we're in control. You know, I mean, there's all kinds of delusions that are covered in Buddhism. It's a wide, wide field of deluded thoughts and ways of being that we have. The next on the Eightfold Path is right action. No killing, no stealing, sexual misconduct, and intoxicants. Those are all classically listed. Intoxicants, fundamentally, because if you abuse them, they dull your mind, and so how can you practice Buddhism? You can't, because you're not mindful, ergo it doesn't work. When we think about right speech and right action, and each of these things kind of hook together, right? You can see how one kind of connects to the other one. So our view and our intentions affect our speech and our actions, right? Specifically with speech and action is where in Zen comes into play what we call skillful means, right? So skillful means is being able to combine all 8 of the branches of the Eightfold Path and then have appropriate speech and action associated with that in such a way that the one that you're communicating with gets it. Not in the way you think it should be, but so that they get it. It's not important that you express it in the way you think you want to say it. You need to say it in the way they can hear it, specifically with speech or actions. It's the same thing. Next, we go to the right livelihood. Historically, again, in this classic sort of listing of the Eightfold Path, that's not dealing in weapons, not dealing in living beings, so slavery, not working in meat production. So if there's any butchers or here, I'm sorry, cattle farmers, it's just, there's a lot of vegetarianism in Buddhism, but it's not a requirement. It's actually, the Buddha talks, he said, whatever they put in your bowl, that's what you should eat, because he made his living as a beggar, right? Whatever was donated is what he ate. They had a prohibition for monks that if the animal was raised for you or killed specifically for you, you shouldn't eat that. But if it's a dead animal, you know, that's already been killed for other consumption, then you're permitted. So again, this is sort of a classic historical, in modern Buddhism, a lot of temples will have vegetarian menus at their retreats, but it's not a hard and fast rule. Making, selling intoxicants, so if there's any drug dealers in the crowd, that's now, I've offended them. Abstaining from any mode of livelihood that breaks the basic precepts of not stealing, killing, etc. This book here, I've been reading, The Beginner's Guide to Walking the Eightfold Path. I just finished this. I just got it, partly in preparation for this, and it's a good book. It's a really good book, and it's very modern. So she talks about a lot of modern examples of right livelihood, right action, right thought, so on and so forth, and quotes a lot of wonderful teachers that I know from readings. And so I really recommend this book. We'll have it available. You can look at it later. And she talks about work quite a bit there. I have a couple other things I want to say about work. Work, do we work for things? I mean, we do. We just work for things. In old Buddhist literature, it talks about the 10,000 things, right? I mean, imagine this. You've got a mud hut, a pot, a few robes, maybe a whistle or a little altar or something. You know, 10,000 things was a lot of things. That was, and you become tangled with all of your things, right? You cling to your stuff, right? I have 10,000 things in one small room. You know, I mean, I have 10,000 things in my car. It's made of 10,000 things. And so we get so trapped in, we hook our livelihood, our making a living, our existing as a human being to acquisition. And that's that greed side that's coming all the time. Greedy, greedy, greedy. What's enough? What's enough? And I had to ask that question myself personally years and years and years ago because I was an entrepreneur. You know, I'm an inventor by trade. And if I decided that if I couldn't work 50 hours a week and make a living, I'd work for somebody else. You know, we need to draw limits on our livelihood. Not just that it's something that's beneficial to others, but that we can survive in it and become better human beings, you know? So this work thing is, we spend more of our time working than doing anything else. That's how we spend the majority of our lives. So the way we approach our work is really important. You know, do you get to go to work or do you got to go to work? You change one letter in a sentence and it changes the way you approach what you're doing. I mean, most things we get to do. You know, there should be a lot of gratitude already expressed today, just in the being part of this miraculous thing. We talk about this Buddha nature pervades the whole universe. That's what that is, that spirit one mentioned, that's unnameable. You can't talk about it. There's words don't work for it, right? But we know it, we can feel it. You know, we can sense it when it's real. If we spend more time in that, working to make sure that that's the benefit of our work than things, I think we're going to have a happier livelihood. And when you do have to do a crappy task, do it with focus. You know, don't be going in there going, oh, I'm doing this crappy task, I want to do something else, right? That doesn't work. It's like, I'm doing this crappy task to the best of my ability. All the time. Put your best in it. So to me, that's been a really important part of my life. So that's why I'm expressing it so enthusiastically. We'll use that word. I'm glad you guys are pretty casual so that I can stumble around a little bit. Right effort. That comes to being, if you're not awake, your effort can't be as beneficial as it is if you're awake, right? So the more mindful you are of your effort, the easier your life will be. Specifically in this classic rendition, avoid and prevent arising of unwholesome states which have not yet arisen. Okay, so you have an unwholesome state, you're aware that it's an unwholesome state, and before it occurs, you go, I'm not going there, right? Whatever that is, lustfulness, greediness, whatever that unwholesome state is, you're aware of it because you can see that now because you're awake and mindful. You can say, I don't need to go that place. Abandon wholesome states which have arisen, right? So if you see an unwholesome state that's arising in you, you can say, I hereby renounce and relinquish that. You just give it up. You don't have to hang on to it. You can't hang on to it. One of the two first things that we prefaced this with was impermanence. You can't hold on to wholesome states. You can't hold on to unwholesome states. So the sooner that you'll decide, I don't have to hold on to that, the easier it is. Let it go. That song today, let it be. Just let it be. Don't keep picking at it, which is what I do. Cultivate and bring forth wholesome states which have not yet arisen. So say, for example, and that comes to compassion and generosity. And so if I know that compassion and generosity is a wholesome state, I can practice that. And then it will arise in me as a reality. Right? I call that faking it until you make it, right? That's what that is. You practice the thing that you want to be or achieve, just like the cello, right? Maintain and develop wholesome states which have already arisen. So say, for conversation's sake, sharing the Dharma, sharing the teaching, right? So that's something that I personally want to do. And so that's a wholesome state that I want to cultivate. It's ground that is beneficial to hopefully others, which is hopefully what's going on today. Hopefully there's one idea, two ideas in this whole thing that hit home and you can say, oh yeah, I can see how that makes some sense, you know? And so that's a state that I personally want to try to enhance. Right mindfulness. So in Buddhism, it's taught that they're called the five aggregates. So it's form, physical objects, feelings, how we feel about things, neutral, negative, or positive, perception, which comes in through our five senses, right? That's our perception. And then there's mental formations. So that's a flame. I named it, right? So that's a mental formation. And then there's consciousness, being aware of mental formations, right? So those five aggregates make up the personality of human beings. I mean, you can kind of see how they all fit, right? Form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. So in right mindfulness, you need to see how all those things kind of fit together. And the way that Buddha taught to do that was contemplations on four different things. Contemplations of the body, mindful breathing, body posture, clear participation and comprehension of whatever physical activity you're involved in, right? Repulsiveness of the body. He would send his monks to the charnel ground and they would watch bodies decay to understand that your body's made of the same stuff, right? To bring you into connection to the reality of impermanence in the form of death and of the decay of the body. Buddhism and enlightenment isn't always a happy kind of, I don't even practice. I don't like to use the word religion because you don't have to believe anything to do this practice. So there's no belief required, which to me is really, really important. It's something that's eminently practical. It functions. Just like E equals MC squared or 1/2 GT squared, right? And these are laws, they work. Contemplation of feelings. So this one is like you can feel an emotion arise, right? Sometimes, I don't know about you, but sometimes I'll have an emotion, I don't even know where it came from. I'm just going along, kind of neutral, and I'm going, I don't even know where it came from. Alan Watts, kind of a famous beat Zen teacher, lived on a houseboat down in Sausalito, kind of a famous guy. He said that the mind just makes secretions. They're mind secretions. And I mean, in a way that's true. I mean, neurochemically, stuff is going on that we don't actually have any control over. Any kind of a stress that we may not recognize consciously can affect our feelings, right? So being able to see your feelings and then not attach to them. And attachment doesn't mean, attachment means both aversion and delight. Both of those are traps. Just notice them. You don't have to do anything with them. They'll be there. They'll come, they'll go. Contemplations on phenomena. This is being really, really aware of your environment. In Zen, it's taught that this Buddha nature, one of the manifestations the manifestation is everything, and the interconnectedness of all of it. So are you separate from the air? I was reading this little thing, this woman is walking in the forest, and she's going, I'm breathing the air that the trees are breathing out. They're breathing in my air, right? And that's actually what's going on. You know, I'm exhaling carbon dioxide, the trees are taking it up, they're exhaling oxygen. I mean, how am I separate? I'm so interconnected with everything. You can't do anything without depending on somebody and something else. And we just don't respect that enough. You know, really contemplate how important our interconnectedness is to our survival, right? And impermanence is the driver there, right? If everything were fixed, there wouldn't be any interdependency. And if you think about life, it's amazing. It comes out of impermanence. If we go out to a barren rock out in space, where things are relatively permanent, there's nothing happening, right? It's empty. There's nothing going on. Impermanence is what we live on. You know, it's the reason we can be. And when you think about that, like in the real world, to me, that's where the joy is in Buddhism. It's like, it's amazing. It's just, I'm just in awe of it every day. It makes me smile. The last one here is right concentration. And so right concentration is a one-pointedness, your ability to focus on a single thing, thus breath counting. That's one of the fundamental practices to concentration. If you can count your breaths from 1 to 10 for 20 minutes, you can do anything. Literally, you can set your mind on anything and you can accomplish it. And the reason that's important in this discipline is because that allows you to work on whatever your great question is. Buddha's great question is how to reduce suffering. Einstein was how does mass and light work together? Oh, Newton wanted to figure out why apples fall on his head. Those things can be solved through single-pointed concentration. In Japanese, there's a special term for it. One of my favorite words, joriki. And what you find if you do seated meditation, which allows your mind to calm, that you can actually keep working on that question. And interestingly, you can, it doesn't make any difference what the question is. If the question is worth thinking about, it's worth concentrating on. Why would you waste your time on something that isn't worth thinking about? And if it is worth thinking about, why not concentrate your full effort on it and not get jerked around by your monkey mind? We call it monkey mind. You swing from thought to thought to thought to thought to thought to thought. Can't keep your focus on it, not you, me. Can't keep our focus on anything, right? So that is that's the discipline side of the practice. I think I'll close here with one more thought. I sometimes talk about our mind, and you heard me already say that boredom is the gateway to insight, right? Another thing that I often say, and I wanted to share, is that we don't change our minds. You don't go, I think I'm going to change my mind about that, right? You notice your mind has changed. Post facto, your mind has changed. You had an insight. You got new information. You got more mature. You practiced the Buddha way, the Eightfold Path. And you notice your mind changes. The way you are changes, your being changes. Don't have to believe anything. Just walk on the path. I'm going to do a closing chant. Buddha nature pervades the whole universe, existing right here and now. Wind blows, waves fall on the shore, and Kuan Yin finds us in the dark and broken roads. Oh, we give thanks to all the ancestors of meditation in the still halls, the unknown women and men, centuries of enlightened women and men, ants and sticks and grizzly bears. Oh, let wisdom go to every corner of the house. Oh, let people have joy in each other's joy. Thank you.
Our contributions are an important part of our spiritual practice. Not only do they keep the lights on and someone in the pulpit, but they support the work of our fellowship that we do in the community and the wider world through our Share the Plate offerings and our ongoing support for food security through the Little Pantry, Packing Friendship, and the Saturday free lunches at St. Luke's. This is one way we embody our values. We will now receive the offering. We are blessed by your generosity. Thank you. Now let's rise and sing our closing song, All My Life's a Circle. Our benediction today is Wendell Berry. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake nests in his beauty on the water and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in grace of the world and am free. And now, as we extinguish our chalice, please join me in saying the words printed on your order of service or on the screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and embody in our lives until we are together again. And now we can circle up, join hands, and sing our closing song.
Carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again. Carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again. I'm not sure.